Welcome back to the Authenticity Calling podcast. I'm your host, Ralitza, and today we have a very special guest, Katja Schwan. It's so beautiful to be here with you, Katja. Welcome.
Thank you, Ralitza. I'm happy to be here with you. Thank you for your invitation.
Absolutely. Katja and I met through the Gene Keys. There was someone who had posted a comment, or maybe I even started the thread, but my message was around like, I always see people's potential, and somehow that sometimes brings out an avoidant pattern or even like a codependent attached pattern. And so it's very interesting how we choose to navigate when we're aware of energy. And so my comment was something about that, but I know Katya, you had replied and said, we should connect, or I asked you to connect. And so yeah, it was just a beautiful way that life brings mirrors and those beautiful conversations when we're vulnerable, right? When we're open to being vulnerable and sharing our hearts in a safe space, how our spirit tribe just comes to us, right? And so it was such a beautiful connection. And so I'm so grateful to have you in the space and just to have the connection. And yeah, just see what comes out of it, see what kind of juiciness we co-create.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So I I could really relate to your comment because this is what my job is actually to see the best or the highest potential in my pupils. They are the emotional and social needs
Mm,
kids, and it's like a special school. So
mm,
I always find something good in the kids, even though they behave very, challenging, basically, I would say. It's not, as far as it comes to kids, there is no bad behavior. It's just not knowing how. And so it's up to us as parents and also educators and other adults to help them to find their ways to basically accept and allow themselves to be who they really are. So we're just coming back to the gene keys because that's our mirror of our inner awareness frequencies and also our inner, juicy stuff like shadows, gifts, and cities.
yeah.
And
I love that
so
you
it's
call it juicy stuff. I'm like, that's my language. Yes.
yeah, it's like to bring the kids or to bring somebody to, like you said in your comment, to see somebody in its highest potential can can make them freak out because it means they cannot, they feel the frequency of you or me or somebody else who is holding them in their highest potential. And if they haven't embraced or allowed it before, that it might be the most frightening thing they ever experienced.
It's very
So to me,
confronting. Yeah.
yeah. So, and it took me a long time to find out that this is the case because that also means self-observation and see how that feels for me to be held in somebody's view in my highest potential because then I experienced, oh, this is kind of weird and somebody thinks so good about me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and it's so
So
interesting because I think we do judge it as good or bad. Like if that is good, then I am bad. Like we have that duality, and sometimes that, being in that frequency of separation of our highest potential. Like when there's that call to action to actually embrace that highest potential, there are, layers, as most people say, like layers of the onion, right? Of things that we're being asked to work with, right? And I think a lot of times we get stuck in that space of complacency where we overcome one thing and life is kind of like flowing, like it's good. There's always better, but it's good, and we kind of get stuck in that good, and that's not a bad thing either, right? Like there's no judgment of good, bad, up, down, how far we're meant to go in this lifetime. It's a very personal experience, in my opinion. And so even when we talk about the siddhis, it's almost this thing like, and for people that have no idea what we're talking about, just going to give a tiny little background, and Katja, please jump in and correct anything
Yeah, sure, sure.
if I
Yeah.
say anything wrong. But from my understanding of the gene keys, it's been a very interesting confrontation. It's confronting. That's the only way I can put it, and in a beautiful way. But confrontation, if you're not accustomed to confronting yourself, can be very difficult for some people, or it can be, a little bit challenging to embrace, or even like something you repel and you run away from, because we don't always necessarily, we're not ready to see ourselves. And so it's not that we're stuck in shadows, but sometimes we're, some people that have rejected this sort of gene keys understanding, they might even be in their siddhis, most of them, and they just love their flow of life and they don't want a reflection, right? And so it's not a judgment of where you're at either, whether you accept or reject them. But the gene keys is a study based on the time, location, and date of your birth. So it's astrologically based, so very similar to human design. But one aspect, it really truly approaches one specific aspect. And when you put your information in, it gives you different spheres of your life. And so there's an activation sequence, which is all about your relationship with yourself. So there's 4 spheres there. And these spheres also connect to all of the other spheres. So the next one is your Venus sequence, or your connection with your most karmic bonds, right? Whether it's your best friend, your parents, your relatives, or your, worst enemy, as we say in life, right? And so it's those kind of dualities that were meant to attract and repel in one another, to learn about life and to overcome, is my understanding. And then there's the pearl, and that's really how we show up for the greater good in humanity, right? And more of a community aspect, like what are we meant to actually pour into the world, and how do we receive our abundance, how do we receive our prosperity from the world. And so it's constantly that flow, that receivership and offering. And so there's 3 different levels of each of the spheres. And so there's the shadow. So the shadow is basically when we're stuck in our fear, in our victim mode, in our scarcity. How do we respond to the world? How are we in the world when we're in the shadow? It gives a really beautiful description, and it really helps you to become aware. And there's a reactive pattern, and there's what was the other one? There was reactive, or there's
Repressive,
repressive. Thank you.
repressive, yes.
And so it's so interesting to read and to catch yourself, because right away you'll be thrown back in memories and you'll be like, oh, I show up this way and that way. It's so fascinating because then we catch ourselves in it. And it's not actually about, doing the work or fixing. It's not that the shadow pattern is a bad thing, but it's just an awareness that this is the frequency in which we're showing up in life. And there are other frequencies on the journey. So there's the gift, there's the siddhi, right? And how we show up in those. So I was so fascinated by the gene keys, because it really called me out of playing small. It really called me out into the awareness and recognition that, I always used to say like, oh, I'm a spirit mom to people. But that used to just be something I say because that's what my students would always say to me. Oh, you're like a spirit mom to me, and thank you so much, like for holding that space and just having that conversation, or calling me. Because a lot of my students, again, I would see the greatness in them and I would reflect it, and I would say, what's going on? And then they would say, well, this and that. And then all of a sudden, after an hour of being in my office, they would walk away and they would just like, just be so elevated and so connected in life. And so, yeah, I used to think like there's something to that, but I hadn't put my finger on it in terms of how I meant to actually offer it, not recognizing that I was already doing it as a teacher. So,
Yeah, yeah. It's
it's
all
really,
about awareness. It's
yeah.
all about when we look at when we truly honestly look into ourselves, like a neutral observer, I would say, which is quite, it's quite a big goal to be neutral when you're stuck in yourself. So, but then it's like like you had that example before, coal with the onion. I feel like it's coming more and more into the layers of suffering. And
Mm.
suffering in terms of not like it hurts, but it's more like I feel a certain way of victimhood.
Hmm.
That can be very simple, like when somebody in a car is overtaking you and you get angry. So that is also a shadow
Yeah.
frequency. And so kind of observing yourself. Oh, wow, now I'm, angry or sad or triggered in any other way, which is not wrong, but it holds the gift in itself. And that's what I love about the Gene Keys, because as soon as I breathe into it and let it stay there, these emotions. This morning I had a profound experience with this because I wasn't reacting, and it was such a trigger. I had such a
Mm.
trigger with my landlord lady. And it's, when it comes to housing and workplaces, then it's kind of survival mode you get into.
Mm.
So it can be very much a lot of trigger.
Yeah.
So, so I was like so agitated. My whole body was kind of, you know, my heart was bumping, my belly was constricting, and I felt all this constriction in my body and like very uncomfortable. And to
Mhm.
just let it sit there and not do anything but observe it,
Mm.
it's a huge challenge. But when, it slowly kind of changed, and I
Mhm.
could observe it in my body this time so closely. And after that, it was like a gentle sort of opening in myself for the love I'm here to spread and also to experience. But
Mm.
it's very subtle, Sometimes we just go ahead fast, not noticing.
Mhm.
And in the evening, we have back pain, So,
Mm.
there is that connection. We can become more aware about every tiny little subtle thing we experience, and it doesn't need much except observation and
Mm.
awareness.
That's such a beautiful gift. Thank you for sharing that. That's so, so, so important. And it reminds me actually of the work of somatic work. What we're doing is really going into the body and going to that place that's tight and contracted, the back pain, for example, in your perfect example, and going into that back pain and actually holding space for it. That's all we're doing. We're not judging it, we're not fixing it, we're not here to, good, bad, or other, but really just holding space to allow the energy to open up. And that's exactly it, to become the observer. And that's where the gift comes through, whether it's a lesson, an awareness, a memory, whatever it is. And then we go into that. But physical symptoms, we talk about this a lot with the mystics and the medicine, or the healers that studied. I have a group of healers that have studied medicine. They've graduated, they become licensed physicians all their lives. They've been doing this physician work, and in the Western world, to realize that it's all energy. And by taking away the symptom, we're actually numbing our connection to our greatest gifts.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. It's that's such a profound thing you just said, because that's exactly what the core wound in the gene keys, that spot where we have our greatest potential, but also it's our biggest part of imprinted suffering. It's that core wound and vocation sphere. Um, and it is related to the spine, So everyone who has back pain in terms of gene key language can look into his or her core wound and contemplate there, and then the spine will be released, whatever time it takes. But it is one way of applying the gene keys to your own healing process.
that's
And
fascinating that you said that, because I've never thought to use the gene keys for
mhm.
healing. I'm starting a platform now. It's called Up to Health Global, and it's really calling the healers to come up. and share their gifts for that transformation, for that activation, for exactly that.
Mm.
And I've just fallen so in love with the Gene Keys over the last 2 years, but I didn't draw the bridge until you just said that now.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. That's fascinating. Beautiful.
I do hold space with a lady in Switzerland, in Zurich. She's called Elana Andermatt, and we do together sensual and healing education for healers. So it's a tantric massage combined with the gene keys frequencies. But we only take one gene key each weekend seminar.
Yeah.
So, for instance, we start with a purpose gene key, and I introduce a little bit, but I don't overload it with theory, but we just hold these frequencies in the back of our awareness
Yeah.
while we use our fingers and our heart mind to attune to the person next to us who
Mhm.
we're gonna massage
Mm,
and or even from whom we receive.
mhm.
So, and what I experience in these educational weekends, it's when that weekend starts, people come in and share. These are all healers already, so there's a lot of easygoing sharing, but so there is that bit where they share something and they are very vulnerable, and then we open the field with the gene keys and it suddenly changes because they take in
Mm,
their own frequencies, and I can see or already in their faces how they kind of connect to their frequency because it's really resonating because it's so
mhm.
personal what
Mm,
you get in that profile.
mhm.
And then we play around with how we do that. Sometimes we did only the shadow first, and sometimes we did all three frequencies of the gene key in one row.
Yeah.
But what came up the last six weekends I did is always on Sunday when that seminar is finishing that the people have opened up in their city spaces. You
Mm,
can see it in their eyes and you can feel it in their presence, how they sit in the sharing circle. And yeah, it's something about using the body to bring in the frequency of the Gene Keys profile, which is so magical and mystical. I can't really say how that works, but it's nothing, there is not a structure to it or some sort of, you know, pathway. It's just playing with it, and it's so fulfilling to do that work. And also, it's always different. And, it depends on the people there, of course, but also, because I'm in there and Ilana is in there all the time, for us, it's kind of like, exhilarating the embodiment of the gene keys and the higher frequencies, and also embracing our shadows more, so there's a lot of laughter about our deafness and
yes.
our failure, what we just ever incorporate through the DNA of the gene keys. So yeah, so it's interesting.
Thank you for sharing that. That's so beautiful because to me, what came through, the word that came through was like that attunement, like you attune to the energy actually being okay, whatever that is, right? And it does. It's so beautiful to be able to hold ourselves so lighthearted in that space that we can laugh at ourselves. When I was little, when I was not maybe little, but like younger in my 20s, 30s, and people used to say, "Oh, you should be able to laugh at yourself." I used to think like, how do you laugh at those shadow parts of yourself? Because I was such a perfectionist at the time, and that was one of my growth edges too. But it's like, how do you laugh at something that's so like you see it all of a sudden, as soon as you see it, you're like, ah, it's such an ick, like I can't believe I showed up
Yeah, yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah.
And then that's packed with judgments, right? So it's
Mhm.
when we do it in life, and when someone's not holding that space, that beautiful space of reflection, where everything is acceptance and everything is it just is, where you can see
Mhm.
yourself and it just is. It's not about good or bad. It's not about, the judgment of the shadow, but just purely the presence, not even acceptance, because that means the
Mhm.
difference, but that pure just being in it. Like holy moly, that the level of attunement that happens in our system. And I don't even just want to say our body, because our body is a part of our system. But
Mhm.
you know, it's just that leveling out, you know, like in a wave pool, when the wave comes and it's like, oh my gosh, this big wave. And then if another wave doesn't come, eventually it'll go back and forth and back and forth and settle. And so
Mhm.
it's giving that space to settle, right? Rather than just being tossed over and over and over in rejection and judgment and you know, trying to fix
Yes.
ourselves. It's like, it's not about fixing, right? It's just about being, just about like slow it down. And I think it's some of the most fascinating work with somatic work with clients is, you know, when they work something and they hold the presence, but then it's like, okay, I'm ready to get out of it. And it's like, okay, just wait. Let's just would you like it?
Yeah.
Would you like to just sit with it for a little bit longer? And that invitation is like, it's like you take a breath for the first time. It's like you've been holding your breath your whole life, and you
Mm.
take an actual deep, cleansing, nourishing breath for the first time.
Yeah.
That is what I feel like sitting in
Yeah.
communion, in community with people that are on this path of the gene keys. I feel like that's what it feels like.
Mm.
And even just the spaces of contemplation and, you know, the communities, it's not about one person sharing and another person responding to your sharing. No, it's simply just holding space for you, whatever comes through. And when you're complete, you say, I'm complete, and that's it. And that might activate something within someone else, but it's about self-awareness, about self-reflection, about what's coming through you in your vessel, not that sort of the codependent relationship of I'm going to fix you. And as a healer, that's been such a pattern in my life of like, I'm the fixer.
Mm.
It's all about other people. And it's so funny because like people like me that have this pattern of prioritizing others, it's actually one of the most selfish things we can do.
Yeah,
Right? I'm so
that's
selfless. It's
true.
like, no, you're so selfish. You think you're the answer to everyone. So it's just so funny. It's such a beautiful gift to be able to just be.
Yeah, that's what I do when, I like how you said that with waves, because in my experience, when my clients come in and, I'm a coach as well, and also a yoga teacher and a shamanic healer, and also the Gene Keys guide. But now for, for a couple of years, the Gene Keys have kind of become my heart business. So I love to draw from this and start there. When people come and want to have a Gene Keys session, I firstly explain to them it's not a reading, I don't, as you said, I don't fix you, I don't tell you who you are. I just help you to find your own answers and look into your profile and maybe share my own contemplations on it. But that doesn't mean that this is the correct path. It's just a mirror for you to find your own ways. And what happens then is mostly that people come and the Gene Keys profile as a starting point, and then we come into deep traumatic work, like you also do probably in your guidance, and then I can use the coaching tools and people ease into these things, because they have through the Gene Key profile, there's something, you look when you have only the profile, people just sometimes want to have only the profile and then it's fine. I still think it works because it is in the back of your mind. I wouldn't say mind, but of your system,
Yes.
basically. You have that, and you cannot look away anymore. You cannot be completely in victimhood anymore. As soon as you have the profile, you have healed yourself consciously a little bit already,
Yes.
because then you become aware of your victim patterns,
Mm.
and these are not bad things. It's just like a lotus flower. They hold, that their outer leaves. They hold
Mm.
they hold a gift inside, the beauty and the frequency. And, if the outer leaves wouldn't be there, there would be no lotus flower. And
Mm.
so it's that sort of juicy stuff, you just go and drink tea with your shadow, go like, hi, you're my mate, and not my enemy. And but that takes time, again, it's a pause, it's a long-term journey with yourself, and it comes up in layers again and again. So yeah, but in these seminars, I really enjoy becoming more close with my shadows now,
Mm.
body wise, and also, in my heart mind and in my mind, when, that always comes up something when I'm in that seminar already, always.
Mm.
And I embrace it because it always gives me the chance to more become friends with my frequencies and become more free, basically, a great change in the 55th gene key. That's our
That's,
time we are living in now, so which is beautiful.
can you say more about that?
Yeah, so the I don't know if you know Pam Gregory and yes, Richard Rudd from the Gene Keys. They both will have another series of calls next time. So
Okay.
I'm not sure where they show up, but I guess on YouTube. And yeah, it's about the great change which is coming in 2027. There's a huge change coming in, and this is where the Gene Keys wisdom comes in too, because it is related to the human design, like you said before. And in the Gene Keys, there is that 55th gene key. It sits in the solar plexus. Even if we don't have it in our profile, we all have it, because the profile is only the most profound gene keys of your DNA. So that's the difference. Otherwise, we would be all the same people, So, but the 55th gene key is somewhat the most important one, with the 22nd as sister.
Mm.
And the 55th gene key is in the shadow, the victimization, and in the gift is freedom, and in the siddhi also freedom. So the first freedom is more, to me, it's more the individual freedom, when I feel more free because I can relate to my shadow much nicer, I have that sort of flowy state you said before. I experience sometimes glimpses of my siddhi state where I'm fully immersed with everything around me, with the world, with the animals, with the nature, with people, with my own self, and not indulging in the self anymore. So it's like dissolving somehow. Yes, and all the shadow states of the gene key are part of victimization. So the 55th gene key is very important because it's changing now, 2027, and already now kids are coming in who are not having this 55th gene key in that way anymore,
Wow.
which is magical, because the humanity is changing. And so Richard calls it, the next year he calls the year of the closing door, because
Mm.
after 2026 there will be no way of relating to what was there before. There will be totally different way of living
Oh,
for
that's
all of
so
us.
fascinating. Sorry to jump in, but the fascinating thing that hit me just now was like politicians can no longer use fear mongering because it's not going to be there. There's no opportunity to use our victimization to control the masses. That's fascinating.
Yeah, he says that when we do our work, it's not like there will be people who are experiencing victimization all the time, because this is something what needs to be opened up. So,
Hmm.
but there is a chance to open up this now, and also kids are coming in who don't have that sort of suffering
Hmm.
imprinted in their DNA anymore in that way. So, and we will not understand these kids because they have a completely different design, which is also fascinating because that actually asks us to to open up our gifts, because otherwise we cannot live with these kids.
Mm.
When we don't understand it, we need to open up our heart to just attune with each other, because it's not via understanding anymore. It's about attunement of the heart.
Mm,
And that's the beauty of it, I think. And that's also the biggest challenge and also the biggest gift, you know. We
mm,
can open up in that way. So we can become more in the gift states and also open up quicker. And in the 22nd gene key, I just rehearsed that there will be the karmic cycle will become quicker.
mhm.
So, there will be hopefully also everything solved more quicker, So this is my hope in it, but I'm not sure if that's the way it's meant. But yeah, seeing this world being so crazy now with all these extremes, it does make sense
Mhm.
when I tune into it. It does make sense what it does to all of us. So it brings up all the suffering to let us go through that suffering to open up our gifts and our cities and also to interconnect more with each other on the heart minds
Mm,
as
that's
well.
so, so beautiful. Something you said earlier just sent, I call them the truth chills, like that that realignment, that recognition of, ah, we're onto something. And there's just been so much energy moving. So thank you for sharing. Such a beautiful gift and frequency of clearing. It's like it's all clearing. The system is clearing. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful. Something you said just reminded me to reflect and remind us all that we are actually all healers within, right? Every single one of us. And it's
Mhm.
activating that healer within. It's actually taking personal responsibility and claiming the healer within, to
Mhm.
allow yourself to actually sit with it, for that attunement to happen, for that, the energy that's just been bouncing all over the place to settle, right? And then to be able to hold that space to presence whatever it is that is lingering or tight or contracted or wants our attention. When we feel a trigger, that's just an invitation to hold space for those vulnerable parts of us, right? It's like those
Mhm.
victim states of us so that it can clear. And it's interesting because what's coming through now is, as we hold space for that, the 55th almost has permission to, like, it's almost like we're letting a string of the balloon go,
Mhm.
that part that we're holding on to. When we let it go, it's almost like that it gets liberated, is the way that
Mhm.
it's coming through. It's so beautiful because I think we hold so tightly onto our victimhood because that's the only way we know how to receive love based on our human experience. Or we hold on to our victimhood because it feels good to feel bad for ourselves. It's so funny to say it out loud, but like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's just such an interesting frequency, victimhood. And it's fascinating too because this next evolution, you said we won't be able to connect with the children that are coming in now if we don't work, the sort of the victim state. Is that what you said?
I said, like, before Richard said that these are the autistic kids, I knew they were. And this is because I see in my classroom, we have these special schools where all the kids are going to be pushed in who are not fitting into that very old
Yeah.
school system, which I mean, I won't get into it, but
Yeah.
it's just like everyone, it's really, it's really weird when you look from above. I have that 4-6 profile in mind, always looking from the top down and seeing what that does to humanity, what we do there. We put all these more, you know, fantastic, special individual kids together in one classroom, even though they cannot even self-regulate. And then they have to be with people who are the opposite, have a ADHD kid with an autistic kid in a class. How can that work, So there is that challenge of me having these kids in a room, and I mean, I do observe them as well, how they deal with conflict, with all these shadow victimization states, and I can see that the autistic kids are not really bothered by anything. So, I mean, there is that bit of it where you go like, how can you? I'm very triggered now because it's so noisy in the classroom, and this one is bumping to the other and shouting out loud, and so. But these kids are sitting there scribbling down their work, or even asking a profound wisdom question while there is a conflict going on next to them. So I can see that this is amazing, how they deal with emotions, even
Mm.
though they don't deal with them, obviously. But
Mhm, mhm.
so I can feel that there is truth behind this, that the 55th gene key is transmuted or transformed, or um, this is something. It's just a feeling of it, and so I don't know what it means, because the autistic kids, as we speak, they have special ways of dealing with the world, and you go like, hmm, okay, right.
Yeah.
I need to accept, this is the way you perceive your world, and you want to handle the world. And so they cannot really contact the way we contact. When we have that intimate call now, we talk to each other, we look into each other's eyes, and these kids, they don't use it.
Yeah.
So but they also communicate. And that's what Pam Gregory says, and I believe, and Richard, about these kids. They communicate in a different way without language.
Mhm.
They have a different way of communication. So, and we just need to open up our heart, because we will not understand how they communicate, and they cannot tell us how they communicate. So there is no way of doing that intellectually, or in that way we are doing it now. So we need to attune to our heart and just love them how they are.
Mm.
And this is opening up, and this is also reflecting love from them, because that's what I experience in the classroom. Even though they are so different, they
Mm.
reflect love in their special ways.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, a lot. It's like there's so much to unpack there. So it's fascinating what came through was so emotional because they do only communicate with their heart. And if you've ever sat with a child, we label. We label things in medicine and with the DSM and you know um, it's sort of that diagnostic criteria of all psychological things. And it's really fascinating to me because it's the unlabeling that's going to bring us our freedom. And so even when we see, I mean, it's good to be able to kind of classify so that we can have a conversation about it, right? But it's not so much to label in terms of putting that disease label, which is what we've done so far. I work a lot with people with ADHD. I myself was diagnosed as an adult. I am astoundingly focused when it's something that I'm passionate about. But when it's something that just doesn't resonate for me, like I've never been able to learn history because I know it's bullshit. No matter what you tell me, it's a one
Mm,
version of the story, and it's made to be however, the writer that's written this book
mm,
wants it to be. And so it's never sat in my system in a way that I can receive it. Like I don't hear it. I can't read it. I read it
mm,
over and over and over again, and it just doesn't sit. And so if you think about exams, if you think about the that sort of higher level overview of an exam, what are you doing for an exam, especially a medical exam? You're pretending that there's a case. So you're making up a case. You're lying to
mm,
whoever's receiving it, that there's this case, and you're trying to manipulate them to choose the wrong answer, because I'm going to give you 5 answers that are correct, and you have to choose the most correct one in this very falsified case. You know what I mean? That's meant to be a
mhm,
trick. And it's like, are the entire medical school that you go through learning to become like a healer or a doctor, and then in order to be able to get licensed as a doctor, you have to follow the algorithm. of the
Mm-hmm.
pharmacologic way to manage disease is basically what it is, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
when we sit at these exams, there is literally almost no truth in any of it. So you ask someone with ADHD who someone with ADHD is very attuned to the truth, by the way. We get so much information from the world, and it's hard to ignore that there's so much misinformation out there. And it's very distracting because it's very loud and it's just like, what's going on, right? But if you sit in truth and in alignment and you attune to the frequencies that are the truth, and you're able to actually remove yourself, from that's attuning, right? Getting aligned, choosing and doing things that are juicy and, expansive for you. That's the gift. And so it's interesting what comes through is almost like we put these labels on people. I can say so much about that. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I pulled myself back out of that rabbit hole. But when we start to remove the labels and just see people as pure energy, right? And we're able to actually go into that heart-centered connection, right? Instead
Yeah.
of the judgment of them as this label, when we can actually hold space to connect and open, as you say, opening our hearts to somebody who has this energetic pattern of autism. It's so beautiful because that is their communication. It's not the five senses that we have learned to listen and speak and smell and see. No, they're not attuned to that. They're attuned to a deeper frequency within. And so because most of humanity's hearts are closed, it's almost like they live in a different matrix. They don't even see the people whose hearts are closed. Like they're not even aware that they exist. That's why they say like people, it's like they're in their own world. Yeah, they are. They're resonating at a different frequency, which only if in your heart space, if you are in your heart space, they will connect. All of a sudden, you'll see if you're in a room with someone who has autism and you're heart centered, they will see you from a mile away. They'll know you're coming before you even get there. They'll be waiting for you. And as soon as you walk in the room, they're like, huh. And then it's like this totally different person comes out. And parents look at you like, I've never seen this side of my kid. Like, what did you do? How did this connection happen? Right. And so it's interesting when you see, and even with schizophrenia, like I used to teach med psych in medical school, and I presented to my students the perspective of schizophrenia, that if humans only see this much of the light spectrum and we hear this much of the sound spectrum, isn't it possible that people with schizophrenia hear and see just a little more than what most of us hear and see? Because isn't it funny that they hear and see the same things and they can have an entire conversation about those things and it seems to make sense to them, but it doesn't make sense to us? Isn't that funny? And so my students, one of my students has a friend, a brother with schizophrenia. And she said after that class, she saw him completely differently. And it actually, because of her acceptance and love and compassion to him and accepting him as he is, released so much of those judgments. And he became a different person. He just blossomed in front of her because there was not this level of judgment and, diagnosis and fixing and, that there's actually something wrong with us. No, we are exactly the way we're meant to be, regardless of all the labels we can put, and it's just so beautiful to come into that space of acceptance with first ourselves. I mean, if we're not accepting in ourselves, we're going to project our non-acceptance onto other people. So that's number one. But being able to see such beautiful gifts in one another, like, oh my goodness. And they're all reflections, right? I mean, we're all mirrors of each other. And the deeper we can accept ourselves, the deeper we can accept others. But yeah, I just to have had that experience with someone with autism and to really have connected, to their heart, and then to see them, go into this space. And like he went from introvert to extrovert like this and started teaching me about like all these karate moves, and like he just had so much wisdom and knowledge. It's like he became Jackie Chan, and all of a sudden I was learning from the great Jackie Chan. Like it was just this experience. I wish everyone could have it, to be able to open up those gifts of these, every single human being, but I mean, especially these new age kids that are coming in with such profound connections and wisdom and knowledge, and it's just fascinating. The world becomes so fascinating when we go from our head to our heart, as you said.
Mhm.
um so I'm just wondering if you have some more time, because I know we booked an hour. We're already.
Yeah, no worries. We can go on for another, say, 10 minutes or so.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah, beautiful. I wanted to kind of ask the question because it keeps coming up, and that's really, my friend read my pattern to me yesterday, and she said, you help people go from the head to the heart. And you said it multiple times. So I just, if you don't mind, just reflecting, what does that even mean? Uh, in the grand scheme of things, or what comes through for you when you
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah. There are many layers of it, how I think it's possible, but the main thing is when clients, you probably do the same when you have your clients, because that's something with what healers who are attuned to the other client, are doing, quite naturally, is when you listen to somebody who comes in and talks about himself or herself, then you listen to everything and you just receive. And to the mind is a starting point. So to
Mhm.
reflect to them what I have understood as the mirror is the first thing I do in my coaching. So I just summarize what I've heard and ask them to correct me if it's not right. So they have still the control about their stories. But
Mhm.
what it does is that in that moment where I share my understanding, what I just heard from them, it is also bringing acceptance in themselves. And then there's that body opening. I don't know if you have experienced that when you witness your clients, when they kind of start relaxing into the room. So that first bit of, oh God, I'm here, I'm okay as I am, because that is also the frequency, what it does when I just listen and try to reflect back what I've understood so far without judgment, just to make sure that I've understood it right. I
Mhm.
think that already opens the room. And from there on, I use my intuition to feel into it, but mostly to bring them into their body is to let them close their eyes, like you naturally did that
Mhm.
now. So
Mhm.
because we listen, better when we switch off all the other senses in some ways, and
Mhm.
especially the seeing sense is quite immense because we judge with seeing, I think mostly
Absolutely.
because then yeah, we name stuff, which is it's been a survival strategy for the humanity, but now it's kind of not that best thing to relate to the seeing sense.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and then I bring them into their body. We just put stuff in the room, whatever. It could be a word, it could be a thing, it could be something they relate to their topic. And then I use the body to move this. So they don't sit in my sessions. They stand up, maybe they lay down, maybe I touch them. With the kids in school, I touch them sometimes. I ask them if I'm allowed to, but I touch them. And
Yeah.
that also is a frequency which brings them into their body because they can then express what it feels like when they have the hand from me on their back. There is a certain point which is called the milk point, which is out of my shamanic education, because that's the milk point when kids are not breastfed, they have a different anxiety level and everything in life is not as good rooted like when somebody is breastfed.
Mhm.
So, and
Wow.
that this point
Yeah.
and the back is helping them to reconnect their bodies to that security and grounding. And you feel it when you do that on the back with a child or even with your partner. You can try it out this evening if you like. Just put the hand between, just a little bit lower from the shoulders
Yeah.
in the middle of the back and just hold it there lightly, not pressing on it, but just hold it there. And this is like a special point, you know, it's kind of
Mm.
giving you relaxation instantly. So you're like, oh, the
Mm.
body relaxes, you know, not the mind, but the body relaxes and then the mind stops thinking, you know. As
Mm.
soon as the body relaxes, also the mind is not doing so much work anymore. You know, this is all interconnected.
Wow, that's so
Yes.
fascinating because it's such a natural reaction for me. And shamanic work is something that I keep being called into. And it's one of those things that I'm like, nah, I'm nah. So the fact that you're saying, it's a natural reaction for me. A lot of times I'll just put my hand on my partner's back in the middle of the night and I don't know
Mm.
what I'm doing. Obviously, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But it's so fascinating. And the visual that I have is like that's where our angel wings come out of. And when I think
Mm.
about breastfeeding,
Yeah.
that's the part of your child that you're holding so you can make that
Mm.
connection. So it's like you're
Mm.
constantly grounding them back into themselves. That's so fascinating to me. Obstetrics and gynecology was kind of my chosen specialty in medicine. And yeah, like that
Mhm.
spiritual soul midwife, basically, you're supporting people to come into their bodies, into the system of their family. And I thought the most fascinating thing and one of my favorite parts of being in a room where a mother's giving birth and the father's in the room, as soon as that baby comes, boom, that man changes. And
Mm.
it's the most beautiful thing to see a man turn into a father in that room, in that instance, as soon as the baby arrives physically
Yeah.
into the
Yeah.
world and out of the womb portal. It is just so beautiful. Um, so anyway, I don't know why that came through, but I really trust that.
Yeah, I know. That's beautiful. I can see these men becoming fathers, and I remember my ex-partner who was the father of my daughter, how that happened, you know. Yeah, you're right. It's amazing because they change only when the child is coming through the womb.
That's right.
And for us women, it's totally different. We have these 9 months preparation and change in that time and, you know, attune to the child and the other way around. So there's a natural connection anyhow. So,
Yeah. No, it's really fascinating too because I've actually felt it in myself with my son, and now I'm just getting like such truth chills. I can't even. Sometimes I need to take a breath when it comes through so strong, this information, because 3 months before I got pregnant with my son, and it's interesting because in the in the gene keys and the human design, we have our design pattern, which is it 3 months before we actually are born. So there's something about those 3 months. But 3 months before I even got pregnant, I changed my entire like everything that I was doing. I was actually in medicine doing my obstetrics rotation. And I started taking prenatals. My doctor told me every woman of childbearing age, she actually said it to a patient in the room. And I'm like, I'm not taking prenatals. She said every woman of childbearing age should be taking prenatals, not just when you're going to have a baby, but always because our bodies need, those vitamins, those minerals, and in the case that you
mhm.
do get pregnant, you're ready, right? Your body's ready to house that soul, that person, that energy form that's going to be creating itself through you. And so it's so fascinating because it's almost like my son was speaking to me before he was even a physical entity as a seed and an
Mhm.
egg coming together.
Mhm.
I stopped drinking coffee, which like on that rotate, you're up for 48 hours sometimes. It's almost like that's the only way you can function. But I remember like I stopped drinking coffee. I started exercising more regularly. I was so much more grounded in myself. It's almost like I was already pregnant. I already knew
Mhm.
my child before anything physical or biological ever happened. So it's
Mhm.
fascinating when women become mothers. I feel like it's even before the physical aspect of it. It's so fascinating. So yeah, but it is. It's that portal, right? Like to be able to be the vessel. And I think that's why it's so important to do our divine feminine embodiment work. And I think because the frequencies of that energy of stillness, of being, of receivership, of attuneness to our intuition, all of those things are sort of those that we label them as feminine energy, call it the being energy rather than the doing energy. The masculine's more logical and
Mhm.
practical and more in the
Mhm.
doing and more, for the audience that's listening. But when I say feminine, it's not a judgment of gender. It's really it's an energy form. And so I feel like the men on the planet have actually been receiving the feminine energy so much better. That's why there's almost this like whole reversal that's happened. Like women have become
Yeah.
so much more in our masculine to like fight for our achievement and fight for our position in
Mm,
society and like
mm,
really be seen and heard. And it's like, but your magic lies in actually not being heard.
mm,
And that moment when it clicks is so beautiful because then you become the magnet, then you become the attractor, then you become, it's like being that vessel of receivership. So anyway, again, I don't know where this is coming from or who needs to hear it, but it's coming through. So yeah, really, really grateful for this conversation. Has been like, I feel like we could just talk forever.
The thing is, isn't it fascinating how humanity develops? Like now these kids are coming in, which ask the parents to become more aligned with their hearts. And, it's the natural development of not wanting only, wanting a child. It's more becoming a parent with the responsibility of attuning to the child, which is coming or has chosen to come to me. So, I mean, it's been like this before as well, but it's just that frequency of the changing, the great change, and it's us who can decide whether we take on this sort of pathway of inner suffering, going through all our layers of emotions, which can be quite challenging because of a child which maybe cries the whole time in the start. So, and that is not an easy job. And so there is. And also, when you talked about the ADHD and stuff, so we, as humanity, we wanted to label things because we like the structure. We somehow want to feel safe when we can say this is right, this is wrong, this is the duality we lived in. And now humanity is we come from oneness, we are in duality, and now we go to Trinity, like Richard says. We are not going back to oneness, but we integrate the oneness into the duality or the opposite, duality into oneness.
Mm.
So, and that is not a comfortable space to be in. So it will get, you know, some juicy stuff to explore for all of us. And so it depends if we embrace it and say, okay, yes, I'm aware of where I'm going, and this is what the gene keys give me, that gift of awareness, the reassurance, what I feel in my body is coming next.
Mhm.
And that's why the heart mind is so important because it's a connection between the body and the mind. This is the space between the body and the mind.
Mm.
And this needs to be, you know, acknowledged, opened up, and and then we can become these divine beings we meant to be anyhow.
Mm.
Anyway, I would say. Yeah. So
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That's so perfect. Thank you. That was such
thank you
a
for
beautiful
your
experience. I feel like we can go down many rabbit holes and open up many portals of
yeah.
conversations and wisdom to come through. And I so appreciate you, Katja, for being here with me. And I mean, we had scheduled a meeting prior to this and I had to reschedule, and you were so graceful with your ability to pivot, and I just appreciate it so much because this
No
is
worries.
so much more of a grounded space to have these
Very good.
conversations in. So thank you. Yeah, thank you with all of my heart, mind,
Thank
body.
you for your trust and your invitation. And yeah, I love how the shadow is in your half of your face and the light. It's
I
just
was
like,
gonna close the
it
curtain
just
and I
feels
thought, no,
so
it has
funny.
to be this way.
It resonates. We
Uh,
both of it. You never should push away anything of it. So it's that container we are in is asking us to acknowledge all of our sides and all of our opposites. When we see somebody else, we should embrace their shadows and their gifts at the same time. So, which is a challenge, but it's also a beautiful gift to experience. Yeah.
Indeed, such a gift. Oh, thank you so, so much. So beautiful.
Thank you too.
Have an amazing evening.
What?
I think it's evening for you, correct? You're in Germany?
Yes, it is getting really dark now, so I
Beautiful.
go to my yoga session now and then
Oh, enjoy.
attempt.
Enjoy it
Yes,
fully.
thank you.
Have a beautiful evening. Thank you, Katja.
Thank you. And do you let me know where you broadcast it so I can re-listen it a little
Absolutely.
bit?
I will tag you
Was
all over the place. Yeah. Anywhere I can find you, I'll tag you. Are you also on Instagram?
yes, and
Beautiful.
now I have just opened up a little Instagram new thing, Gene Keys Inspirations. So I try to, share my contemplation, but they will be in German, but I guess they get translated in English. I'm not sure.
Yeah, AI does
So
fascinating things. So I'll get both of those
yeah,
from you and I'll tag you on that. That's amazing.
and I'm also in, my Facebook page. It's one, but it's in Instagram. It's Shwani. It's with an Y, my
Okay.
private one. But you can come in and on both of. So you're very welcome. Thank you for everything. And
Beautiful.
yes,
Thank you. Take
see
care.
you around online. Thank you
Absolutely.
so
I'll be
much.
there. Take care. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.